Yeah, I'm available. Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Venkatesh, are available?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, I'm available. Am I audible?
Yeah, now only audible. Okay, fine. Okay, we'll make the presentation to start. You also observe. Okay. Um, Anish, batch can start the presentation now.
Okay, ma'am. I'll start. A very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of
And
Group 1, I would like to start by quickly introducing our team members. I am Abdul, and along with me are Anish, Abhishek Vijayan, Abhishek Dadij, Abhinav, and Aditya. In today's presentation, we'll be taking over the topic of open channel flows, its classification, and its properties. To start with, we have Abhishek Dadij to provide us with an introduction to open channel flows.
So hello everyone, myself Abhishek Dadij and my roll number is 3. So I will be discussing about the open channel flow. So first of all, what do we mean by the open channel flow? Basically it is defined as a flow where the liquid flows through any channel with a free surface subjected to the atmospheric pressure. Now here the channel can be narrow, wide or mild, any kind of channel maybe. And the second thing is the free surface. What do we mean by the free surface? Here the free surface is the interface between the air and water, or you can say like it is the interface between the liquid and gas. That's the free surface. Now why the open channel flows occur or why any flows occur? The flows occur due to the energy difference of liquid particles. That's why the flow occurs. Now the open channel flow can be the turbulent flow, laminar flow, transcendental flow, any kind of flow can occur. The flow in a closed conduit can also be considered as an open channel flow, but the condition is the fluid level falls below the crown of the pipe. An open channel can be like it can be in a waterway, canal by which the liquid flows along the surface. Here you can see in the diagram, like the atmospheric pressure is acting on the free surface. The free surface is the interface between the air and liquid. Here the atmospheric pressure is acting on this one. So it is considered as an open channel flow. Next slide, please. So why to study open channel flows and what are the reasons to study the open channel flow? So to estimate the discharge in the river or canal, we study the open channel flow. To develop the relationship between the depth of the flow and discharge in channel. To estimate the submergence area due to the dam construction on a river. And here are some of the examples of the open channel flow, like the flow of the rain water in the gutters of houses, the flow in the canal, drainage, ditches, sewers, gutters along the roads, the flow of the small rivulets and sheet of water across fields or parking lots, river, canals, stream, sewerage system, all are the examples of the open channel flow. Next slide, please. Now, here the classification of open channel flow, like here the definition is given of the free definition of free surface is given, as I told, like it is the interface between the liquid and the gas. And now the open channel flow can occur in naturally or artificially. Like naturally, it is occur in the form of rivers, creeks, floods, like, and artificially, like human-made system, freshwater aqueducts, irrigation systems, sewers, drainage, and ditches. In this way, open channel flows can occur. Next slide, please. Here, the open channel can be classified into two parts, the natural channels and the artificial channel. Now, what do you mean by the natural channel? Natural open channel, like it means all the channel that exist naturally on the earth, and these are the irregular in shapes. Some examples are the river, tidals and creeks and etc. And the second one that we have the artificial channels. For the artificial channel, we classified into two parts, that is open cross sectional and the covered cross sectional. Now, what is the artificial channels? These channels are developed by the man, and basically these are in regular shape. Some of the examples, as I told, like irrigation canals, laboratory fumes, spillway queues, roadside gutter. With this, and next slide please. Yeah, here we are going to discuss about the kind of open channel. We have the canal, flume, queue, draw, culvert, and open flow tunnel. Now, with this, my part is over. Over to Abhishek Vijayan.
Yeah, so now we'll be looking into the kinds of open channel flow. So we'll start with the canal. So canal is usually a long and a mild sloped channel which is built on the ground. So you can see in the picture, this is how canal looks. So you can easily find canal over the places which is prone to the agricultural places as well as the irrigational sites and all. So next comes flume. Flume is a channel which usually support on or above the surface of the ground to carry water across a depression. So basically it will carry the water around a depression, and it is basically constructed on a support above the surface of the ground. And next comes chute. Chute is basically a channel which is having a very steep slopes. So whenever you find a steep slope, we term it as chute. Coming to the next slide, drop. Drop is basically similar to that of the chute. It will have a very long steep slope, but the elevation is very short over a short period of or over a short distance. And next is culvert. A culvert is nothing but an open channel flow which is covered or it's a partly full. It is usually installed over places to drain out the water through highway and road embankments. And next is the open flow tunnel. So we know what exactly a tunnel is. So it's a closed covered channel, and it's a very long channel, and it is used to carry water from one places to another place, like usually through a hill or any obstruction on the ground. So now we'll be looking into the types of flow. So these are also termed as the regimes, flow regimes. So the open channel flow is classified into two types. One is a steady flow and unsteady flow based on the time as a criterion. And steady flow and unsteady flow is classified into a uniform flow and varied flow depending upon the criteria, considering space as a criteria. And now the varied flow is classified into gradually varied flow and rapidly varied flow. There is another term which is spatially varied flow, which we'll be looking into the next slides. So now we'll be looking each of the flow regimes. First comes the steady flow and unsteady flow. So whenever so a flow in a channel is termed as a steady flow when the flow characteristics is constant with respect to the time, then we term it as steady flow. When it is not constant with respect to the time, we term it as unsteady flow. So for example, in a downstream, when we have any obstruction like a regulator or a barrage, we generally consider it as a steady flow. And for unsteady flow, the example is flood flows in a river. That is an example of unsteady flow. So next is uniform flow and non-uniform flow. So in a simple words, when the depth such as the flow properties in which the depth is constant along the length of the channel, we term it as uniform flow. Similarly, when the depth is not constant with respect to the flow, then we term it as non-uniform flow. So this a prismatic channel generally which is carrying a discharge with constant velocity is an example of a uniform flow. And this non-uniform flow is actually categorized into two, that is GBF and RBF. Now we'll look into that. Next slide. Okay, so gradually varied flow. In simple terms, when the depth is varied gradually so that the curvature of the streamline is not excessive, then we term it as a gradually varied flow. Or in other words, when the slope is less than 1, that is dy by dx is less than 1, then we term it as gradually varied flow. And regarding the rapidly varied flow, when the depth of the flow in a channel changes abruptly over a small length of the channel, then we term it as rapidly varied flow. So for example, whenever you have a sluice gate in a channel, so just after at least around a meter distance, the flow we usually see is rapidly varied flow. So next comes the spatially varied flow. Over to the next slide. So basically the varied flow means when there is no water added or removed, that is the volume is constant, we term it as varied flow, which is the GBF and RBF. But when some of the flow is added or subtracted, then we term it as spatially varied flow. So for example, if you have a channel and around the channel, like across the channel, we have a small wire. So where there is a small discharge going out of the wire, so which means some of the flow is actually subtracted. So this kind of scenario, we call it as a spatially varied flow. So these are the types of open channel flow. Then we'll next look into the go to the next slide. Yeah, properties of open channel flow, which will be explained by Abhinav.
Hi, this is Abhinav, and I will be discussing about. I'm audible, right?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So I will be discussing about the properties of open channel flow, mainly the geometrical elements in open channel flow. So the first one is the cross-sectional area, which is basically the area of cross-section normal to the direction of flow of liquid. So here you can see the BB dash, and that will be the cross-sectional area, which is normal to the direction of flow. And the distance y is basically the direct vertical distance from the surface to the free surface. Next slide. Yeah. Now you all know what prismatic and non-prismatic channel means. Prismatic channel is a channel in which the cross-sectional area remains same throughout its length, and a non-prismatic channel is one in which the area keeps varying across its length. The next slide. Yeah. Next, or the first geometrical element will be the depth of flow, which is usually represented by y, and it is the vertical distance of the lowest point of the channel to the free surface, and d will be the distance which is normal to the direction of flow. And you for when theta is very small, you will find that y is always equal to d. Next slide. The next element will be the top width, which is basically the width of the free surface. You can see in this diagram. The next one is the water area or the cross-sectional area. You can call it any way, which, as I mentioned before, is the cross-sectional area which is normal to the flow of the liquid. Next is the wetted perimeter, which is basically the length of the line of intersection of channel, which is wetted by the flow. Here the red color marking shows the wetted perimeter for this particular channel. Next is the hydraulic radius, which is the simple ratio of wetted area to the wetted perimeter. And finally, the hydraulic depth, which is the ratio of wetted area to the top width. The next slide. Yeah, so here you can see the area, perimeter, and the hydraulic radius for different types of flow. First is a circular channel, and in this you can see how the area, the perimeter, and finally the hydraulic radius is calculated. Area is basically the area of the pink color area, and perimeter is simply the 2 times the arc length, and hydraulic radius will be the ratio of that. For the trapezoidal channel also the same thing is done. Area of the normal trapezoid divided by the perimeter of the trapezoid, which doesn't include the free surface, of course. For rectangular channel also the same thing. And the last one is when the breadth of the channel is very large compared to the width. And in this case, you can approximate the denominator or the wetted perimeter to be alone. And finally, the hydraulic radius will be equal to the depth of the or the thickness of the flow. Next. Yeah, in here you have everything summarized, the area, the wetted perimeter, all of this is summarized, which you can refer later also. And these are all about the geometrical properties of open channel flow. And that will be about my part. And with this, we come to an end to our presentation.
Finished?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Why open channel flow? In what way open channel flow is different from pipe flow? First batch.
Yes, ma'am. In open channel flow means the boundary is subjected to the atmosphere, whereas in pipe flow it's covered and the pressure is not actually the atmospheric pressure. So this is the basic difference of open channel flow, which is different from the pipe flow.
Okay. Then what is the total energy at any particular section for open channel flow? Other than Abhishek, Vijay, anybody can answer. What is the total energy?
Ma'am, the potential plus kinetic, like according to Bernoulli, this thing.
Potential plus?
Ma'am, Z plus Y plus V square by 2G. Z will be the
Huh?
Z like the normal Bernoulli's equation, madam.
Yeah, tell me the equation.
The kinetic V square by 2G. Then the potential will be the head of this thing, and then the depth of the liquid.
Kinetic plus potential plus what is the depth? What is the depth of liquid? The potential?
Ma'am, pressure head.
Pressure head plus
Z plus Y plus
atom
the
head
kinetic.
plus kinetic head.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Suppose I have two sections. Section 1 is at the upstream, section 2 is in the downstream.
Yes.
Okay. And section 1 E1 total energy is E1, section 2 total energy is E2. Whether E1 will be same as E2, provided
No,
all the conditions are same, all cross section is same, velocity is same, low velocity is same, and
upstream there will
depth
be
of fluid is same. All other conditions remain same. Whether the total energy remains same at section 1 and 2?
no, madam. Upstream there will be more losses.
So which one will be higher? E1 or E2?
One.
Downstream it will be higher.
Section 1 or section 2?
Section 1 will be higher.
Yes.
What about others? Why people are not opening? Only 2 people are answering. Abhishek, Abhinav.
Section.
Nadeshit is answering. Other people are not opening their mouth.
Ma'am, losses are there, friction loss is there, and energy at section will be greater than the energy at section 2.
Okay. Okay, fine. Second batch, you can give your presentation.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jayashree from Team 2. My team members are Aditya, Ansh, Ahmed, Amar, and Ahmed. Today, we're going to discuss about the applications of the momentum principle. And further, we will discuss about the hydraulic jump, surges, and the flow resistance in open channel. So, hydraulic jump. It is basically a steady, non-uniform, rapidly varying flow. It occurs when the supercritical flow meets the subcritical flow. And we can frequently observe this in open channel flows like rivers, dams, and spillways. So, if we take any hydraulic structure over which the flow is going to happen, let's take a weir. Here the height is y. When it reaches the bottom of the weir, its height will be y1, which is the alternate depth of y. But we could see that the total energy line remains constant as there is no frictional losses. So y1 will try to reach y, that is the supercritical flow will try to reach the subcritical flow. Meanwhile, it will have considerable energy losses by means of eddies and reverse flows. This is known as hydraulic jump. And after the hydraulic jump, the height of the water level will be y2. And from y1 to y2, there will be some loss in total energy line. So there will be a drop in TEL. And this is how a hydraulic jump will look like, and this is how it will be. And if we analyze, like before analyzing the hydraulic jump, there are certain assumptions that we need to make, that the flow is steady and the pressure is hydrostatic. And if you see over here, the length of the hydraulic jump is very less. So the frictional losses can be ignored. So the frictional force will be 0. And as the channel bed slope is very less, bed is assumed as horizontal, so theta is 0. We know that the driving force is equal to W sin theta, so when theta is 0, the driving force will also be 0. And as per the linear momentum principle, the net force acting along the flow is the rate of change of momentum. Now let's look over here. Here the net force is written as the rate of change of momentum, and the four forces that are acting over here are the two hydrostatic forces, and sorry, it should be FD over here, not PD. So driving force and then the frictional force. We know that this driving force and frictional force will be 0, and substituting the values for the rest, we'll be getting F is equal to Q square by GA plus AY bar. This is the specific force. And the specific force at the upstream and downstream before the jump and after the jump will be equal. So when the specific forces are same, those depths are called as conjugate depths or sequent depths. But when energies are same, they are called as alternate depths. So if you see over here, over this area, this Y and Y2 area, the specific forces are same. So Y and Y2 are called as conjugate depths or sequent depths. But over the area where the Y and Y1 are present, the energy is same. If you see about the total energy is constant from Y to Y1. So as energy is same over there, Y and Y1 are called as alternate depths. So this is all about the analysis. And hydraulic jump, it is classified based on the Froude number of the inflow. Like when the hydraulic jump starts, the flow will be critical. So based on the critical flow's Froude's number, this hydraulic jumps are classified. So first, when the Froude's number is from 1 to 1.7, that is, this is the minimal Froude's number. At this particular time, the energy loss will be minimal. That is, the energy loss will be almost 0. This is called as angular jump, where we can see undulations and ripples on the top of the flow. And over here in this weak jump, that shaded thing, that is the sluice gate. And at the bottom, the area is very small. And we know, as per the continuity equation, when the area is small, the velocity will be large. And when the velocity is large, its Froude's number will also be large, because Froude's number Fr is equal to V by root GD. So as the Froude's number is large, the energy losses will also increase. So here the energy losses will be from some 5% to 18% in this big jump. And next, here there is an unstable high velocity flow which creates oscillations in random directions. Here the flow rate, that is the velocity, will be even more. So the Froude's number will also be even more, from 2.5 to 4.5, and the energy loss will be from 18 to 45%. You can see rollers and oscillating jets over here. And next, here comes the most preferred one, the steady jump. Here is where we will be experiencing the maximum energy loss, like the Froude's number maximum from 4.5 to 9.0, and this is considered as a standard jump. But there is also a jump called strong or choppy jump, which has a Froude's number greater than this, which is above 9.0, and has an energy loss greater than that, which is above 70%. But still, people see this as the most standard jump, steady jump, standard jump. The reason is, even after the jump, the flow will be flat and steady in steady jump. But in the case of a strong or choppy jump, even after the jump, the flow will be wavy and it won't be steady. And when the flow is wavy, it's not okay in the downstream area, as it will cause so many property losses and stuffs. And this will mostly occur only during the time of floods and stuffs. So this is all about its classification, and whatever the formulas we discussed and the things we derived is only for the rectangular channel. And if you go for any other channel like triangular, trapezoidal, semicircular one, there is only one difference. Like we know that the specific force at the initial and the last will be same, so F1 is equal to F2, and we just need to substitute the value of the specific force. And the only difference over here is that area of the cross section and the centroid distance. And if we substitute the value of the corresponding area and cross section of that particular channel, we will be getting the required equation. And this is all about classification. And finally, hydraulic jump is used as energy dissipators. We observe that hydraulic jump dissipates the downstream flow's energy. And we know that when the dam is open, it's not advisable if the flow is coming out with a very high energy, as it will cause lots of property loss and damage. So the sluice gate will be opened such that it will cause hydraulic jump that will make the water to lose its energy. And these chute blocks are provided in order to trigger that, so that the water will lose even more energy. And so this is what hydraulic jump is used for. And I discussed about what is hydraulic jump, its type and its application. Now my friend Amar will discuss about surges, its types and applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayashree. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Here I am briefing about the surges. Surges is the sudden changes of flow in open channel, which results in the increase or decrease of flow depth. The changing depth with time is due to breaching of dams by earthquake, or regulating the hydropower sluice gate. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, Jayshree. Yes, thank you. Here we have example of surges in downstream channel, which is regulated by sluice gate of 12 megawatt Jhimruk hydropower project, as shown in figure, which is located in western region of the Nepal. The surge generated by the rapid opening or closure of the sluice gate of the project. The former causes a positive surge wave to move downstream, and the latter produces a positive surge wave which moves upstream as shown in the figure. And the negative surge waves in the downstream river channel are also produced when the sluice gates are suddenly being closed. Now we will see the type of surge. First one is backwater surge. It is a positive wave moving upstream, and it is due to a sudden reduction of downstream flow. And the second type of surge is flood surge. It is also a positive surge, but moves downstream. It is caused by a sudden increase of upstream flow, as in a tail race channel of hydroelectric scheme. When the turbine demand increases, it happens in that time. The next one is drawdown surges. It is a negative, and it is caused by an increase of flow downstream, as shown in the figure. And they occur in headrace channels of hydroelectric schemes. And the other one surge is an ebb surge. It is negative and results from a reduction of upstream flow. When the sluice of a branch distributing channel is suddenly opened, there is an ebb surge in the main channel downstream of the junction. And now we will see the celebrity, that is the wave velocity. In the open channel surge, due to the sudden changes of flow depth, it creates celerity in the flow in addition to the normal water velocity of the channels. The propagation of the surges becomes positive or negative depending on its crest and the trough of the waves. And here are the different surges, and corresponding celerity is given. Here C is the wave velocity, and G is the acceleration due to gravity, and Y is the depth of the water flow, and V is the velocity. And here we can go through the formula later, and I will request Ans to say about the flow resistance in open channel flow.
Thank you, Amar. So you guys must have got an idea about flow open channel from previous presentation, and I will be covering flow resistance in open channel. So an important characteristics of open channel flow is that free surface is at atmospheric pressure. In open channel flow takes place due to the inclination of bed, and fluid moves like a mass on an inclined plane. Weight of liquid along the slope acts as the driving force for the motion of flow. The surface at boundary on perimeter provides resistance to the flow. This flow resistance can be understood with Manning's equation, but before dealing with Manning's equation, let's have a look at Cherry's equation. Moving to the next slide. So at the top left of your screen, flow is of uniform nature here. And for the derivation of Cherry's formula, we need to study any two sections in pi. By applying momentum principle at these sections, we get an equation which you can see at the third line on the screen. Here, P refers to the pressure, M refers to the momentum, W refers to the weight of fluid in considered volume, and F refers to the shear force. After applying conditions from uniform flow and ready-made equations, which we can't go in depth due to time constraints, we get the famous Cherry's formula, V equals to C root of R S naught, where C is Cherry's constant, whose value depends on type of channel surface. Moving to the next slide for Manning's formula. Manning's formula is used for determination of roughness coefficient denoted by N, which is our main target here. The variation of roughness coefficient occurs due to the main contributing factors such as surface roughness, channel irregularity, channel alignment, silting, vegetation, obstruction, and flow rate. Manning's formula for flow resistance is V equals to 1 upon N R to the power 2 by 3 S naught to the power 1 by 2, where V is flow velocity, N is roughness coefficient, As the name suggests, n is function of nature of boundary surface, and r is hydraulic radius, s naught is bed slope. Now, Chezy's formula can also be used with Manning's roughness coefficient. As right earlier, the Chezy's formula is v equals to c root of r s naught. So the relation between Chezy's coefficient c and roughness coefficient n is c equals to 1 upon n r to the power 1 by 6. Now on the right of your screen, we have an example illustrating a vertical section of river channel. We have been given flow resistance in the form of channel roughness, which is 0.045 here. By putting all the values in Manning's formula, we get the required velocity of flow. So let's moving to the next slide. We have a table which demonstrates many values of roughness coefficients for different types of land cover. So that's all from our side. Thank you, ma'am. And we are open to questions.
What was your topic actually?
Ma'am, we were given 3 topics: hydraulic jump, surges, and flow resistance in open channel.
Okay. Can you give some practical example of where you can observe the surges? Not in open channel flow, whatever it is, wherever it is. In pipe flow also you can observe the surges. Can you give one practical example where you can observe surges?
Ma'am, hello.
Tell me.
Ma'am, for designing the hydropower and irrigation project,
Okay.
Ma'am, for designing the canals, for that we can use that surges application. For the designing of the depth flow during the means for the and also how much discharge will come, and according to that we will design to reduce the cost, and also we will take the risk, or not take the risk, we will think about the future and design for the long years.
Yeah, it's good. Actually surges you can like in open channel, if there are canals which are like running behind the hydroelectric power plant. Similarly, some penstock pipes which are running for taking the water from the dam to the hydroelectric power plants, you can observe these kinds of surges, and those surge tanks will be provided to overcome the surge pressure which is because of surges. This negative surges especially dangerous, so which will affect the entire system and collapse the system. Hence, surge tanks will be provided to release the pressure. Okay. Now it is open. You can ask, others can also ask questions.
Yeah, nice presentation, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
English, you want to ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, audible, you can ask.
Yeah. Anybody in this group can answer, like, what is an oscillating hydraulic jump? Hello?
Hello?
Why
Yeah.
Jayashree, answer.
Yes, ma'am. So the oscillating hydraulic jump means that when the flow is like supercritical and it's very fast. I don't know. I don't remember the exact Froude number of it. Like as it is classified based on the Froude number. Like let me check the Froude number once.
Okay. Like, did you remember that number?
No, I don't remember the number of every.
Not.
Yeah, and the Froude number is from 2.5 to 4.5. That particular jump is called as oscillating jump. And just by seeing the oscillations like rollers and stuffs over the flow, you can easily determine that particular jump is oscillating like that.
Okay, that Froude number at subcritical flow, or at which flow?
It's a supercritical flow.
Okay, F1.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What is meant by celerity?
I didn't get you what?
What is meant by celerity? Like,
Sir,
anybody in this group can answer, yeah.
Yes, sir. Celerity. By celerity, we mean the swiftness of the movement. Whenever, like in the surges, whenever the water flows in the channel, whenever surges may also be created by the sluice gate. Whenever we sometimes we may open the sluice gate or we may close the sluice gate. Just after the opening of the sluice gate, water the water is stored the upstream quickly begins to flow, and this thing. This is the parameter. Celerity is the parameter which is measured by the velocity of the flow and various things involved in the water is stored in the upstream direction. So celerity is basically whenever the water starts moving downstream, or it may also be upstream due to the closure of the sluice gate. That is the thing called as the celerity.
Okay, fine. Like whose notes is that like you put on these slides? Hello?
Yeah, it's my
Sir,
notes.
You downloaded or your own
Not,
notes?
not only mine, not only mine. The hydraulic jump is only mine. Others are my team members' notes.
Oh,
Everyone
fine.
worked together.
Like what is the practical importance of Manning's coefficient?
Sir, the practical importance, by knowing the Manning's coefficient for different types of the beds of channels, we can design design the channel bed for having particular it is very important for us to maintain the hydraulic gradients for the flow of the water. So accordingly, we can design the channel bed according to the Manning's coefficient of different materials, so that we can have less head loss while the transportation of water through the channel.
Actually, it helps us to offer the most efficient system by analyzing how much resistance that particular bed offers to the flow of water.
Okay, fine. Is it telling about the smoothness of the bed or what?
Resistance offered to the flow due to the nature of the bed material.
So basically, it's the roughness of the channel's bed.
Yeah, roughness. Okay, fine. Yeah, everything is fine, ma'am. Like we can go to the other group. Yeah, other group members can present.
Shall I go over?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, third group can present.
Yeah, okay, fine, thank you. Second group, you can leave, you can finish. But whether all members are there in the second group, please raise your hands. Because first, if you start, you please mention who are all there in the batch. Who are all present? Yeah, Aditya.
Yes, ma'am.
Aditya, Kiran, Amar Kumar, Ahmad Rashid, Jayashri. Then?
Amit Vikram.
Yes, ma'am. Me, Amit Vikram, roll number 11.
Only 4 people are there?
No, ma'am. There are 6 members. Roll number 7 to 12. Aditya Kiran, then Ansha Agrawal, then
4 people I have seen the hands, other 2 people.
Yeah, 4 people only raised your hand. Or
See.
No, it's all 6.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. See, the presentation carries marks and equal weightage will be given for your question answering session also. Okay. That makes a difference. So individual evaluation. So please be attentive and try to answer everyone. If only one person is answering, only he will be getting marks. He or she will be getting marks. Okay. Okay, fine. Second batch is done. Third batch. Introduce your batch names and raise your hands, and then you can while introducing you please raise your hands, and then now I can start the presentation.
Hello, am I audible?
Little disturbance is there. Little disturbance. Okay, fine. Proceed.
Hello.
Yeah. Audible. Proceed.
Okay. Hello everyone. We are group 3 and the group members are Apurva, Ashwin, Aniket, Ayush, Arvindan and myself Arun Kumar, and my roll number is 17. The topic we are allotted is classification of channel in gradually varied flow. In the slide, please. First, let us see what is gradually varied flow. A non-steady, non-uniform flow in the prismatic channel with gradual change in the depth of flow is known as gradually varied flow. The general equation for the water surface of gradually varied flow is given by dy by dx equal to S naught minus AC upon 1 minus F R square. We need to be mindful of this particular equation, and as it will help us in analyzing the flow in different regions of the channel. Now depth are now after the calculation of critical depth YC and the normal depth Y naught, we can have three different relations between Y naught and YC. First one is Y naught is greater than YC. Second one is Y naught less than YC, and third one is Y naught equal to YC. However, the horizontal S naught equal to 0 and adverse slope S naught less than 0, we can't obtain the uniform flow. Therefore, Y naught doesn't exist for these two channel profiles. Change the slide, please. Okay. This table depicts what type of channel we will obtain depending on the relation between Y naught and YC. The first one, if Y naught is greater than YC, we will get the mild slope channel. If Y naught is less than YC, we will get a steep slope channel. If Y naught is equal to YC, we get a critical slope channel. If S naught is equal to 0, we have a channel with a horizontal bed. And if S naught less than 0, we have an adverse slope channel. Change the slide. Zone classification. The space above the channel bed can be divided into three zones depending on the inequality defined by the equation. The space above the topmost line is denoted as zone 1. The space between top line and the next line is denoted as zone 2, and the space between the second line and the bed is denoted by zone 3. Change the slide, please. Now let us discuss about the M curve, where M is denoted for the mild slope. In M curve, Y naught is greater than YC, which suggests that we will get the subcritical flow at the normal depth. NDL and CDL divides the flow space in the three regions as M1, M2, and M3, where NDL and CDL is normal depth level and the critical depth level respectively. In the slide. M1 curve. For M1 curve, Y is greater than Y naught greater than YC. For this condition, the value of dy by dx is positive, which means that the water depth will increase in the flow direction. Obstructions to follow flow such as weir, dams, and the natural features such as the bends produce M1 backwater curve, M2 curve. For M2 curve, Y is less than Y naught and the greater than YC. In this curve, the value of dy by dx is negative, which means that water depth will decrease in the flow direction. Change the slide. M3 curve. For M3 curve, Y is less than both Y naught and YC, and the value of dy by dx is positive, so water depth will increase in the flow of direction. The flow leading from the spillway or a sluice gate to a mild slope forms a typical example of M3 curve. Now I will request Apur to continue with S curve. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Ma'am, am I
you are
audible? Okay. So S represents steep slope. And by looking at the diagram itself, we can see that the slope of this particular channel is comparatively larger than the mild slope channel. So now you can see that the CDL and NDL divide the whole region into three different spaces. And consequently, we get S1, S2, and S3 curves. Now, S1 lies above CDL. That is, for S1 curve, Y will be greater than YC, which will be greater than Y naught. Now, as we know that the equation of GVF is dy by dx is equals to S naught minus SE upon 1 minus Froude number squared. So since Y is greater than Y naught, and we know that the curve of velocity variation in a channel follows a logarithmic function. So since y naught is greater than y, therefore v naught will be less than v. And consequently, we can say that s naught will be greater than se. So by this manipulation, we can say that dy by dx for s1 will be positive. And this further goes on to suggest that the depth of flow will continue to increase as we move further down the channel. Now, one more thing to notice is the asymptotic behavior of the water surface. So when you look at it, when the water is at very large depth, let's say y approaches infinity, then we can see from the diagram that the water surface is assuming a position of a horizontal asymptote. So that's one thing to notice. Now we'll move on to the S2 curve. So for S2 curve, y is less than y naught, but greater than y is less than y critical, but greater than y naught. So for this particular condition, the dy by dx will be negative, which goes on to suggest that depth will decrease when we move further down the channel. Now again, we will look at the asymptotic behavior, and we will see that the water surface line meets the critical depth line vertically, which means that it will create a perpendicular angle with the critical depth line, and it will meet the normal depth line asymptotically. Now the example of S2 curve can be at the entrance region of a steep channel, and where it lands from a reservoir. Now we'll move on to the S3 curve. For S3 curve, the condition is yc greater than y naught, which is in turn greater than y. For this particular condition, the dy by dx will be positive, and it suggests that the depth will increase as we move ahead in the channel. Now we will again look at the asymptotic behavior from the diagram, and we can see that the water surface meets the NDL asymptotically. However, this particular angle that it makes with the bed of the channel cannot be determined so easily. It is going to make some abrupt angle, and we will have to dive into further calculations to figure out this particular angle. Now we will move on to H curves. Yeah, so for H curves, we know that y naught for H curves, we know that the S naught is equals to 0. From Manning's formula, we can say that V naught cannot be calculated when S naught is 0. So for this particular type of channel, the Y naught does not exist. So only CDL will exist, and which will divide the whole flow region into two channels, one above the CDL and one below the CDL. And consequently, we will get H2 curves and H3 curves. So first we will look at the H2 curve. For H2 curve, the y has to lie above yc, and for this dy by dx will be positive, and hence water depth will dy by dx will be negative, and water depth will decrease. Now again, we will look at the asymptotic behavior from the diagram. So we can see when y is very large, that is y approaching infinity, the water surface will be a horizontal asymptote, and when it is approaching yc, which means then when the water surface is going towards CDL, it will meet the CDL vertically. Now we'll move on to H3 curve. For H3 curve, y is less than yc, and for this particular condition, the dy by dx turns out to be positive, and it will suggest that the water depth will increase. And as for the asymptotic behavior, this water surface will meet the CDL vertically, and it's going to make some arbitrary angle with the surface, and we cannot determine that angle so easily. Now Aniket will continue with further.
Hello everyone, am I audible? Okay. So this is C curves. The figure below demonstrates the general shape of C curves. Since flow is at critical stage, there is no region 2 for this. Next slide, Ayush. Okay, so basically there are three types of C curves: C1, C2, and C3. Unfortunately, C1 curves when y is greater than y naught equals to yc. For C1 curve, dy by dx is positive, which means that the water depth will increase in the flow direction. And C3 curve will meet the CDL as an asymptote and will meet the bed vertically. Next slide. So there's a general shape of A curves are given in the figure, and for adverse slope channels, uniform flow depth Y naught does not exist. The critical water depth can be computed for a given discharge Q, and therefore the critical water depth line can be drawn. Since there is no uniform water depth Y naught, region 1 does not exist, as well as in A curves, A2 and A3 are similar to H2 and H3 curves respectively. These profiles are of very short length. Ayush, you can continue.
And in this slide, we have concluded all the points we have covered so far. So for adverse slope, there is two types of zone, A2 and A3. For horizontal slope, there is also two types of zone, H2 and H3. For mild, there are three types of zone, M1, M2, and M3. For critical, there are three types, C1, C2, and C3. And for C as well, there are three types, S1, S2, and S3. The conditions are given, we have already discussed that. So with this, we conclude our presentation. Thank you. We are open for questions. Hello.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Oh. Finished presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the kinetic energy correction factor in gradually varied flow?
Hello, ma'am. Can you repeat the question?
Huh?
Ma'am, can you repeat the question?
What?
Can you repeat the question, ma'am? I did not hear you.
What is the kinetic energy correction factor in a gradually varied flow equation?
Ma'am, it is not equals to 1 as is the case for uniform flow.
It is not equal to 1 for uniform flow. I don't know. What are you
Ma'am,
doing?
it is equals to 1 for uniform flow, but it is not equals to 1 for GVF.
Okay, what is the importance of that? What is the significance? No idea.
No, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay. Venkatesh, you want to ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suppose if y greater than y naught greater than yc, then what will be the profile?
Y greater than?
Y naught greater than yc. Hello.
If Y is greater than
M1
it will be
profile,
M1, sir.
M1, is it correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Whether it is a falling profile or which type of profile?
Sir, it will be a subcritical flow.
No, no. Is it a falling profile or which type of profile?
Oh, okay. So when for M1 curve, we have already said that since dy by dx is positive, it will increase. So it will not be a falling curve.
Means which type of curve?
Rising curve.
Rising curve, yeah. Like where can we observe practically S2 profile?
Which profile, sir?
S2 profile.
For S2
Like-
profile, we can see entrance region of a steep channel. When water is falling from a reservoir and it is at the entrance region of a steep channel. Or when the slope is changing from a mild slope to a steep slope.
Okay, like can anybody add any other answers in this group? Like any practical example of any curve you can add, you can tell. Like on slides you didn't mention any practical examples. Okay, let me ask another question. Like where can we expect hydraulic jumps in S type of profiles? In which zones? Hello, am I clear?
Question is clear or not?
No, sir. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, fine. Like in which type of zones can we expect hydraulic jumps in S kind of profiles?
Sir, in I think in S2 curve, sir.
In zone 2, okay. Is it correct? What about other people? Yeah. Aniket. Yeah, fine, ma'am. Like we can go for the fourth batch.
Okay, third batch, all of you are present. Show me your hands. Only 3 people, Arun Kumar, Ayush, Apur. Only 3 batches. Other 3 are not available, am I right?
I'm also there. Ma'am, Aniket is also there.
Aniket is there. Okay, Aniket is there. Okay, fine.
Ashwin also there. I'm Ashwin.
Now only we are hearing the voices, but people are not opening their mouths. Huh?
Total 5 only, na? What about the 6th member?
Who is 6th member? In your
Aravind.
batch? Aravind. Where is Aravind? Aravind is absent. Aravind is not available, I guess. English, you can mark absent for him.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, he is on Teams actually, Aravindan T, but he is not able to talk, I think. Maybe, I don't know.
He is available, huh?
Yeah, Aravindan T, yeah.
Aravindan T. Is it Aravindan T?
Yes, ma'am.
And he is not available in the team. Huh? Okay, as of now, then you mark absent. He is not answered for the.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
And even if you call also. Okay, next batch we'll go. Fourth batch.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we have geotech class. No, ma'am. At 5.
At 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we'll stop here. From fourth batch, we'll see tomorrow. Maybe if we are free tomorrow, we can extend for half an hour extra.
Yes, ma'am.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll finish it all 5 batches. Is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, pa. Okay, then we will close it tomorrow, same time, 4 o'clock. Yeah, thank you. Fourth batch can give the presentation tomorrow. Yeah, everyone can leave.